Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we want to thank the House for having given the ad-hoc committee an opportunity to resolve issues affecting Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter which has been pending before the U.S. courts and the House of Parliament for many, many years, Mr. Speaker. When this committee was set up, Mr. Speaker, it met all the victims, most of the victims. Most victims, Mr. Speaker, widowed children, the widowed children, orphaned children, widowed, let me say people who have lost their parents in this process, and people have lost their husband or wives in this process. Mr. Speaker, this is something Kenyans know and remember very well, those who are big enough by 1998, 25 years ago. First, Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenges of these people were some going through medical treatment. Some were flown to the U.S. for medical treatment, Mr. Speaker. And they formed groups and have leaderships so that they could use that to do their claims. Notable was the driver of the Honorable Kamotho, who was at duty and had left his family early in the morning, left little children like 3 years old, 2 years old. When this bombing happened, he died there. And up to today, his children are waiting for justice, and we hope them, together with many others, will get justice through this House and through the Senate in America and the Congress. Mr. Speaker, what is needed in this particular matter is for an amendment to be made in the U.S. law to include Kenya as one of the states which can be compensated. That, without it, compensated from a fund, a victims fund, which is set up by the Ministry of Justice, and which is monies collected from defeated Al-Qaeda networks, including the frozen accounts in America. So the money for compensation is available, Mr. Speaker. The Kenyans who went for treatment in the U.S. and Kenyans here went to court in the U.S., Mr. Speaker. There was a very big challenge as to whether a Kenyan national could sue Al-Qaeda on the U.S. soil. Mr. Speaker, that took 10 years and was rejected at the equivalent of High Court. It then went to the Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, coincidentally, the then ambassador to Kenya, Bushnell, had written a book which had detailed some of the activities. And this provided evidence sufficient enough to allow the Supreme Court of the U.S. to allow Kenyans to sue Al-Qaeda on Kenyan soil. And for that matter, over 3,000 suits have gone through. They are awaiting this amendment so that they could be compensated. That particular law has a form for the other Kenyans who can be verified that they were in this unfortunate incident, either dead or injured. And Mr. Speaker, a lot of these people live today going through medication for the last 25 years, going through hospital operations on their own accord, Mr. Speaker, going through removal of glasses from their body, which is done slowly, because some of it, Mr. Speaker, is stuck in the brains. And most of them live uncertain lives. And we met all of them in this Senate, Mr. Speaker, and promised to help them. Mr. Speaker, what is very important now is this amendment to be caused in the U.S. The minister, the chief cabinet secretary, and the minister in charge of foreign affairs has been in touch with this committee and has made his contribution in this committee, has been briefed, Mr. Speaker, and he has sought a document from this House, which is what we are debating today, at least a progress report, and a report which, while they visit the U.S. With the president, they can go with and they can make a presentation to the government of America so that the government of America could also be of help in lobbying for us through the Senate and the Congress, of which, Mr. Speaker, when we got an opportunity, we really lobbied with a lot of them, and they are waiting for this amendment so that they can assist Kenyans. They understood our problem very well. there had been misinformation that all Kenyans were compensated. It has now come from this House and from the courts in America that all Kenyans were not compensated. Mr. Speaker, we are talking of a compensation of about 3 trillion Kenyan shillings. And this compensation, if this amendment is caused upon the President's visit in the US or in the nearest future, Mr. Speaker, then Kenyans will be compensated. This is not from America's taxpayers' money. This is from the money belonging to the people who injured our people. And it is sufficient and it is fair enough that they only compensate the victims so that they may have a relief in their lives and they may have a better livelihood, Mr. Speaker. So I'm pleading with this House, Mr. Speaker, that we debate and give a report urgently. And I believe some of the members of this House who are traveling with the President will have acquired enough information to be of assistance to the President while doing this trip to the US. And I hope all these Kenyans, 6,000 in number, who have suffered for very many years, Mr. Speaker, will finally find rest, will finally find happiness, will finally find that they have been assisted by this Senate, will finally find that they have been assisted by the government of Kenya and the government of America. And we also want to thank the American government and their soldiers for having worked very hard to destroy Al-Qaeda networks in the world and to save many more Kenyans all over the world from being destroyed through terrorism. But that doesn't mean, Mr. Speaker, we don't keep watch. Many other groups could arise. This is something which is most unfortunate, but happens to any country in the world and happened to Kenyans. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Senate endorse the Congress report of the ad-hoc committee on the compensation of the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 2nd May 2024. I can see a few senators of interest. We start with Senator Chalgai Samson.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. And I think when this bomb blast happened, Mr. Speaker, I was still very young. I had not even joined high school. Mr. Speaker, while we continue to condone and empathize with many families who lost their loved ones through this horrendous and tragic terror attack that happened between Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, where over 274 people were lost and more than 4,500 were injured, Mr. Speaker. The remaining who did not die, Mr. Speaker, continue in many years to undergo horror, pain, because of medication, because of trauma. So, Speaker, I want to thank the committee led by Senator Agnes Kavindu and the Select Committee for doing justice, fairness, Mr. Speaker. As I speak, I have one family in Kablelmet in Nandi's constituency where they lost their loved one who used to work in the next building where the bomb blast happened. So I want to say this report was thorough. Mr. Speaker, I have known the reason why the committee always requested the extension of time. I thank your office for ensuring that the committee